I-22F, am going to share a story about how I discovered the true depths of my parents' deception and favoritism towards my sister, 16F. It all began when I was accepted into the graduate program at a top university in our state, something my parents barely acknowledged. Their attention, as always, was focused entirely on my younger sister Abigail. I started working when I was just starting grad school, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. My parents never seemed to have money for me, but somehow always had plenty for Abigail. I remember the moment I decided enough was enough. I needed new shoes for my teaching assistant position, my old ones were literally falling apart. When I asked my mom for help, you'd think I was asking for a diamond necklace. Sophia, do you think money grows on trees? Mom sighed, reluctantly opening her wallet. Here's $40, make it work. $40 for professional shoes. I tried not to show my disappointment. Later that same day, I watched as my parents took Abigail shopping. She came home with 3 new outfits, the latest iPhone, and a MacBook Pro for educational purposes. I did the math in my head, they'd spend at least $2,500 on her in one afternoon. It wasn't a one-time thing either. When I needed money for academic conference registration, Dad made me explain exactly what educational value it had before handing over the cash with a lecture about responsibility. Meanwhile, Abigail would throw tantrums in stores and walk out with whatever she wanted. A professor in my department mentioned they needed a research assistant for a major project. I didn't even hesitate, I applied immediately. They hired me that day. I worked evenings and weekends around my classes. The pay wasn't much, standard graduate assistant rate plus a small stipend for extra hours, but it was mine. I didn't tell my parents, I knew they'd somehow find a way to take it from me. For 2 months, I worked and saved. I bought myself proper work attire, started a small savings account, and for the first time felt a sense of control over my life. Then came the day it all blew up. Mom and Abigail walked into the research lab on a Saturday afternoon while I was organizing data. The look of shock on Mom's face would have been comical if I hadn't been so terrified. Sophia, what are you doing here? She demanded. I work here, I said simply, continuing to input data. Have for 2 months now. Mom didn't say anything else. She just stared at me, took Abigail by the hand, and left. I knew dinner that night would be interesting. When I got home, both my parents were waiting at the kitchen table. The interrogation began immediately. Why didn't you tell us you were working? Dad asked. I shrugged. I didn't think you'd care. Of course we care, Mom said, though her tone suggested otherwise. How much are they paying you? When I told them I made about $1,800 a month between the research assistant position and extra hours, I saw something change in their expressions. It wasn't pride, it was calculation. Well, Dad said, clearing his throat, since you're living under our roof, eating our food, using our electricity, I think it's only fair that you contribute. $900 a month should go to household expenses. I stared at him in disbelief. Abigail needs new winter clothes, Mom added, and we were thinking of signing her up for private tennis lessons. Those aren't cheap, you know. That's when I understood. This wasn't about me contributing to the household, this was about them taking my money to spend on Abigail. No, I said quietly. It's my money. I earned it. I'm not giving you $900 of it for Abigail's tennis lessons. After that night, things changed dramatically. My parents did the bare minimum required by law, they fed me, bought me the cheapest clothes possible when I absolutely needed them, and kept a roof over my head. Otherwise, I barely existed to them. When I had a major presentation at a research symposium, they didn't show up. When I won a departmental award for my work, they didn't congratulate me. It was like I'd been demoted from daughter to unwelcome houseguest. Thankfully, I had my grandmother Margaret. Dad's mom was nothing like him. She started coming to my academic events, cheering louder than anyone else's family. She'd take me shopping occasionally and listen to my problems over coffee at her favorite diner. She became the parent I needed but never had. By the end of my first year in grad school, I was working nearly full-time hours between my research position and additional projects. I'd saved almost all my money, applying for every grant and fellowship I could find. I knew my research career was my ticket to independence. My grandmother Margaret became my rock during this time. She'd often invite me over for dinner, always sending me home with leftovers and words of encouragement. One evening, as we sat on her porch swing, she told me something that changed everything. "I'm going to send you $1,200 every month for your housing," she said firmly. "Don't argue with me about it." "Grandma, that's too much," I protested, genuinely shocked by her generosity. She waved her hand dismissively. "What else am I going to do with my money? Your grandfather left me well off, and I intend to use it to help the people I love. You're at the top of that list." Her support gave me the confidence to start looking for my own apartment. When I told my parents I was moving out, their reaction was telling. Mom barely looked up from her phone, where she was probably ordering something else for Abigail. Dad just grunted and said, "Make sure you keep sending us money for Abigail's expenses." I didn't respond. I just packed my bags and moved into a small but decent apartment near campus. Living on my own was nothing like living with my parents. I could breathe. I could focus on my research without constant guilt trips and demands for money. But the peace didn't last long. My parents started calling me constantly, always with the same agenda. They needed money for Abigail's new laptop, for her private school tuition, for her summer programs. Each time, I refused. Each time, they got angrier. Then came the breaking point. Abigail got accepted into an expensive private high school. Mom called me, her voice syrupy sweet. "Sophia, darling, we need to discuss your contribution to Abigail's education." I knew where this was going. "I'm not contributing anything." "Don't be selfish," she snapped, her sweet tone vanishing instantly. "You have a good job now. It's time you helped your family. Abigail deserves the best education possible." What about my education? What about all the times I needed their support? I said nothing, just ended the call and blocked their number. But it didn't stop them. They started showing up at my apartment, at my workplace, always with the same demands. My grandmother Margaret was furious when she found out. "They've gone too far," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Your father. I didn't raise him to be this way." I focused on my research, trying to ignore the constant harassment. But it was wearing me down. The final straw came when I discovered they'd been telling our extended family that I was selfishly hoarding my money while my poor sister had to go without. My grandmother Margaret was the one who told me about their lies. She'd heard them at a family gathering, spinning tales about how I'd abandoned my family, how I refused to help my struggling sister. The truth? Abigail was walking around in designer clothes, carrying the latest iPhone, while I was living on a graduate student's salary and carefully budgeting every dollar. I was done. Done with their lies, done with their manipulation, done with their endless demands. I decided to cut all contact. I changed my phone number, blocked their emails, and told my department to not let them into the building. But I knew this wasn't over. They wouldn't stop until they either got what they wanted or were exposed for what they really were. And I was starting to think exposure might be the only way to end this once and for all. I had all the evidence, years of text messages demanding money, emails full of guilt trips and threats, bank statements showing their lavish spending on Abigail while claiming poverty. I had the truth. The question was, what should I do with it? My grandmother Margaret's 75th birthday was coming up. She was planning a big family gathering, and I knew my parents would be there. Maybe it was time for the truth to come out. Maybe it was time for everyone to see exactly who my parents really were. But for now, I wait and gather more evidence. My research has taught me the importance of thorough documentation. And when the time comes, I'll be ready. Ready to show everyone the truth about my parents' favoritism and manipulation. Ready to finally break free from their toxic influence once and for all. I know this might seem extreme to some people. Walking away from family isn't easy. But sometimes, the people who should love and support you the most are the ones who hurt you the worst. And sometimes, the only way to find peace is to walk away. My grandmother Margaret tells me I'm doing the right thing, that that standing up for myself isn't selfish. I'm starting to believe her. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. And honestly, it feels right. I'm building a new life for myself, focused on my research and surrounded by people who actually care about me. It's not the family I was born into, but it's the family I've chosen. And maybe that's even better. The showdown is coming. I can feel it. And this time, I'll be ready. This time, I won't back down. This time, the truth will come out. For now, though, I'm focusing on my work, on my new life, on becoming stronger. Because when the time comes to confront my parents, I want to do it from a position of strength. I want to show them that despite their best efforts to tear me down, I've succeeded. I've thrived. And maybe, just maybe, that will be the sweetest revenge of all. Update 1. It's been 3 months since my last post, and things have taken an unexpected turn. I need to share what's happened because the situation with my parents and Abigail has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. Last week, my cousin Jennifer, 29F, reached out to me with some disturbing information. She works in the financial aid office at Abigail's private school and discovered something that made my blood boil. My parents have been receiving a full scholarship for Abigail through a special legacy program, covering her entire tuition and most of her expenses. Yet they're still telling everyone they're struggling to pay for her education. I started digging deeper. Looking through my grandmother Margaret's old emails, I found messages from my dad discussing Abigail's fully funded education package. All while they were demanding $900 monthly from me for her school expenses. But here's where it gets worse. My parents have been using social media to paint me as the villain. They've been posting about how their struggling younger daughter has to make do with secondhand items because her successful sister refuses to help. Meanwhile, Abigail's Instagram is full of photos from weekend trips to luxury resorts and shopping sprees at high-end stores, all supposedly during this time of financial hardship. The manipulation doesn't stop there. They've started sending flying monkeys, distant relatives, and family friends to guilt-trip me. Last Tuesday, my Aunt Susan called, berating me for abandoning my family. "Your sister had to cancel her tennis lessons," she said. "How can you be so heartless?" What she didn't know was that I had just seen Abigail's latest TikTok, showing off her new tennis outfit from a boutique sports store. My grandmother Margaret has been my saving grace through all of this. When she heard about their latest manipulation tactics, she was livid. "I've watched them twist the truth for years," she told me, "but this is beyond shameful." She's been systematically setting the record straight with family members, showing them evidence of my parents' deception. The turning point came yesterday. My parents showed up at my apartment unannounced. Mom was crying, fake tears, I'm sure, saying they needed $5,000 for Abigail's emergency dental work. I stood my ground and refused to open the door. Then Dad started threatening to tell my department head that I was mentally unstable and unfit for research work. Little do they know, I've already spoken with my department head about their harassment. She's been incredibly supportive and has arranged for campus security to be notified if they show up at my workplace again. I've also started seeing a therapist who specializes in family trauma. She's helping me understand that this isn't just about money, it's about control, manipulation, and years of emotional abuse. She's also helping me prepare for what's coming next. Because there will be a next. My grandmother Margaret's 75th birthday party is in 2 months, and I know my parents will try to use it as another opportunity to manipulate the situation. But this time, I'm prepared. I have documentation of everything, the scholarship information, their financial demands, the threatening messages, everything. I've created a detailed timeline of their deception, complete with evidence. Their demands for money while Abigail had a full scholarship. Their threats when I refused to comply. The lavish purchases they made while claiming poverty. It's all there, ready to be revealed when the time is right. Some family members have started to see through their facade. My cousin Jennifer has been quietly gathering additional evidence from the school's financial records. My uncle Robert, who initially believed their lies, recently apologized after seeing proof of their deception. Grandmother Margaret is planning something for her birthday party, though she won't tell me exactly what. Just be ready, she said during our weekly dinner. The truth has a way of coming out, and when it does, it's best to be prepared. I'm both dreading and looking forward to what's coming. Part of me wishes I could just walk away from it all, but I know that's not the solution. Their lies need to be exposed, not just for my sake, but to protect others from their manipulation. For now, I'm focusing on my research and building my support network. My therapy sessions are helping me develop stronger boundaries. I'm learning that it's okay to say no, to stand up for myself, to demand respect. The irony isn't lost on me that my parents' attempts to control me through money have only made me more financially independent. I've recently received a grant for my research, and my position at the university is more secure than ever. Their threats have lost their power. Grandmother Margaret keeps reminding me that family isn't just about blood, it's about love, respect, and support. She's right. The family I've chosen, including her and the supportive colleagues in my department, has shown me more love than my parents ever did. The storm is coming. But this time, I'm not that scared graduate student anymore, desperate for her parents' approval. I'm stronger now, wiser, and ready to face whatever they throw at me. When the truth finally comes out at Grandmother Margaret's birthday party, I'll be ready. To everyone who offered support on my last post, thank you. Your words helped me find the strength to stand my ground. I'll update again after the birthday party. Something tells me it's going to be a day none of us will forget. Update 2: Things have escalated dramatically in the past 3 weeks. I need to share the latest developments because what I discovered left me absolutely stunned. Earlier this week, a brown envelope arrived at my apartment, sent by my cousin Jennifer. Inside was documentation that made my hands shake: bank statements, loan applications, and scholarship records. The papers revealed that not only has Abigail been on a full scholarship this entire time, but my parents have also been receiving additional educational grants for her, money they've been pocketing while demanding in contributions from me. The most shocking part? They've been using my name and academic credentials to apply for some of these grants. They listed me as a financially supporting sibling, without my knowledge or consent. Jennifer found this while doing a routine audit at the school's financial office. She could lose her job for sharing this information, but she felt I needed to know. When I called Grandmother Margaret about this discovery, she was unusually quiet. Then she revealed something that made everything even worse. She'd overheard my parents at a recent family gathering, planning to use her upcoming birthday party to publicly pressure me into taking responsibility for my family obligations. They were planning to announce that Abigail had been accepted into an expensive summer program in Europe, expecting me to fund it. But here's the real kicker: Grandmother Margaret had already looked into this program. It doesn't exist. They were planning to fabricate an entire program to scam more money from me. I spent the next few days gathering more evidence. My department head, who's become a trusted mentor, helped me document everything. She was particularly concerned about them using my academic credentials without permission and suggested I consult with a lawyer. The lawyer I met with yesterday was blunt: what my parents have done could be considered identity theft and fraud. She helped me file official complaints and prepare documentation for potential legal action if needed. Meanwhile, Abigail posted a TikTok showing off her early birthday present, a brand new car. In the video, she mentioned how someone special would be funding her European summer. The audacity is breathtaking. Grandmother Margaret called this morning. Instead of her usual gentle approach, she was direct: the party is in 2 weeks. Be ready. I've invited some people who need to hear the truth. She wouldn't elaborate further, but her tone suggested she has a plan. I've prepared a folder with all the evidence: the fraudulent grant applications, the scholarship documents, bank statements showing their misuse of funds, and screenshots of their social media lies. Whatever happens at the party, the truth will finally come out. To be honest, I'm nervous but also relieved. Living with this knowledge, watching them continue to manipulate everyone, has been exhausting. In 2 weeks, it all comes to an end. My therapist has been helping me prepare for the confrontation. Remember, she said, you're not the one who should feel ashamed. You're simply revealing the truth. For now, I'm trying to stay focused on my research and maintain my routine. But every day brings us closer to the party, and with it, the moment of truth. The next update will probably be after everything comes out at Grandmother Margaret's birthday party. The countdown to the party has begun. I'm ready for this to be over, ready for the truth to finally come out. Ready to be free from their manipulation once and for all. Update 3: The confrontation at Grandmother Margaret's 75th birthday party happened yesterday, and it was more intense than I could have imagined. I need to share what transpired because it's still surreal. The party was held at Grandmother Margaret's beautiful Victorian house. I arrived early, wearing a blue dress she had helped me pick out, carrying a special gift I'd commissioned from a local artist, a hand-painted tea set featuring her favorite flowers. I could see my parents' car already parked outside, and my heart was pounding. Inside, the house was filled with family members and friends. My parents and Abigail were by the buffet table, already filling their plates. They saw me but turned away, whispering to each other. Grandmother Margaret was holding court in her favorite armchair, looking elegant in a purple dress with a corsage pinned to her shoulder. "There's my brilliant granddaughter," she announced as I approached, her voice carrying across the room. The way she emphasized brilliant made my parents visibly stiffen. The party progressed with an undercurrent of tension. I noticed several unexpected guests, the head of Abigail's school board, my cousin Jennifer, and even my uncle who works for the state education department. Grandmother Margaret had strategically invited them all. Then came the moment that changed everything. My mother stood up with her wine glass, tapping it for attention. "I'd like to make a toast to my wonderful mother-in-law on her 75th birthday," she began sweetly. But then her tone changed as she turned to face me. "And while I have everyone's attention, I think it's time we addressed the elephant in the room. My daughter Sophia has abandoned her family obligations, refusing to help with her sister's education despite her successful career." The room fell silent. I could feel all eyes on me. But before I could respond, my father joined in. "We've struggled so much to give Abigail a good education. If only Sophia would help instead of selfishly hoarding her money." That's when Grandmother Margaret slowly rose from her chair. "Since you want to discuss family obligations," she said, her voice sharp as steel, "let's talk about honesty first." She nodded to cousin Jennifer, who pulled out a folder. Jennifer cleared her throat. "As a financial aid officer, I am obligated to report fraudulent activity. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson have been receiving full scholarship funding for Abigail through our legacy program while simultaneously collecting private donations by claiming financial hardship." The silence in the room deepened. My uncle from the education department stood up next. "They also misused Sophia's academic credentials to apply for additional grants, which is a serious legal offense." My mother's face went pale. My father started stuttering excuses. But Grandmother Margaret wasn't finished. She turned to address the entire room. "I've watched you torment my granddaughter for years," she said, her voice trembling with controlled anger. "You've manipulated her, lied to her, tried to steal her money. All while living in luxury and spoiling Abigail with designer clothes and expensive trips. No more." She walked over to me and took my hand. "Sophia has worked hard for everything she's achieved. She put herself through graduate school, built a successful career, all while you tried to tear her down. I'm more proud of her than I can express." My parents tried to protest, but the evidence was overwhelming. Jennifer had brought copies of all the financial documents. The school board had confirmed the full scholarship. Family members who had been deceived by my parents' lies were looking at them with disgust. Then Grandmother Margaret delivered the final blow. "John," she said to my father, "I raised you better than this. I'm ashamed of what you've become. As of today, I'm changing my will. Everything will go to Sophia, the only person in this family who has shown true integrity." The aftermath was explosive. My parents and Abigail stormed out, but not before the damage to their reputation was complete. Family members who had believed their lies approached me with apologies. The school board head mentioned an investigation into their financial dealings. But the most powerful moment came after most guests had left. Grandmother Margaret and I sat on her porch swing, sharing a piece of her birthday cake. "You're free now," she said softly. free to live your life without their poison. And you're not alone, you have real family right here. She was right. In losing my toxic parents and sister, I've gained something more valuable: peace, self-respect, and a chosen family who truly supports me. Today, I woke up feeling lighter than I have in years. My department head has banned them from campus. I'm moving forward with my research, surrounded by people who genuinely care about my success. Grandmother Margaret and I have planned a trip together, something to celebrate both our fresh start and her birthday. We're going to visit the art galleries she's always wanted to see, stay in nice hotels, and simply enjoy each other's company. My therapy sessions have shifted from dealing with trauma to building a positive future. I'm learning to trust again, to believe in myself without the constant shadow of familial manipulation. To everyone who supported me through this journey, thank you. Your encouragement helped me find the strength to stand up for myself. To those still trapped in similar situations, there is hope. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you were born into. I'm excited about my future for the first time in years. My research is progressing well, I have true family support in Grandmother Margaret, and I'm finally free from the weight of toxic obligations. As Grandmother Margaret said, the truth has set you free. And she's right. I am free, I am strong, and I am ready to live my life on my own terms.